Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. So before we get started with this video, the Black Suns organisation has donated a Banu merchantment to give away on this channel, so follow the top link in the description. Also, the link below that is to the Black Suns organisation if you are looking for a cool org to join. I highly suggest checking them out. Big thank you to you guys, it is much appreciated. Anyway, just like Chris Roberts, Tony Zurovec also got an interview with Andy Green from MyRadar. Here is what he said, minus all the you-knows. I did actually just do the Chris Roberts interview. That was my latest video, so check the link below to check that one out. First question is about the economy. Obviously with the Pioneer, it's not just about gathering resources now, it's about using these resources. Question is, will there be more player-to-player interaction in the economy moving forward? And Tony says absolutely. One of the main focuses of tech being developed right now is the service beacon, which is in its first iteration, hopefully ready for the first or second quarterly patches is what he says. But it's the idea is that players can request something from other players or NPCs. So for example, if you're in space and you need fuel, it's too far to travel to the nearest fuel station. Using your beacon, you can request the fuel, set the price that you're willing to pay for X amount of fuel, and then limit the type of player that can deliver this to you. So maybe only org members or friends. Or if you don't want people with crime stats, you can limit the type of person that can come and help you. That will then send it out to a player and they can accept it or not, depending on the parameters you set, whether they feel like that's a good idea or not. This also helps with other gameplay scenarios. It could be, say you get ejected from your ship, or you eject from your ship for whatever reason. You then need transport. If you're a miner needing to move some ore somewhere, or you need protection, or maybe even both, you can also use your mobiGlas to do that. And the money that you give for this job is kind of left in escrow, and then once the person has completed that job, they then get the payment automatically, so you don't have to issue it. Anyway, next question is to do with, will players ever be able to manufacture goods themselves? Now this generally used to be a case of no. It would always be items bought, same with ships, you're never going to be able to build your own ships. But Tony Zurovec said this is something they've been speaking about. Initially, the basic foundation is trade, so buying and selling. Next step is to involve the modifying and overclocking of existing items. And the final step, he says, is creating items from scratch, assuming that you have all the required ingredients and the rights to do so. So it sounds as though if you own a factory or some process line, you're going to be able to create items, maybe like coolers and so forth, technically being able to build a ship from scratch, minus the hull. Maybe if you can build a hull from scratch eventually, then you'll be able to build a whole ship. I don't know how that will play, because obviously all the ships have their own manufacturers. So I wouldn't expect it from ships, but items sounds like it's going to be a possibility one day. Next question, will players be able to generate missions calling other players to their outposts to pick up and deliver goods for them? Now this is kind of a lead on from the first question. Tony says it is just a higher tier of the service beacon. So if you're willing to pay X amount for so much amount of cargo to be delivered to wherever, someone then sees that request who is looking for that particular style and accepts the contract and then does the job. Now obviously, as I've said before, reputation will let you know whether this guy is a criminal or a known thief, and if so, it is likely that he will not see the job if you set that parameter. It could also be that he just hasn't found a job worth stealing from, so if he decides to steal your goods, then he will get a bad reputation. And also, when he goes to sell those goods on the black market, he will only get a fraction of the actual cost of them because they are hot. And also, potentially get a bounty on his head if you so choose to do so. So our next question is to do with subsumption and its final state. What will it be like? Now, Tony says most of the subsumption framework is coming together with 3.0. All the big parts are pretty much done. It's now just adding to that. Things like the algorithmic specifying of what you will see in a particular area based on the probabilities to what you would expect to see in that area is getting worked on. So basically what this means is events happening in areas that you would expect them to happen because of what is around that area. The future of subsumption is mainly just refining and the dynamic stuff to make sure it's not repetitive and interesting. One example he gave is if you're heading from point A to B and you're pulled out of quantum travel as a freighter is under attack in your path, this is one example of a random interaction. So you want to make sure that if something like this happens again, the scenarios don't feel too similar and have more variation rather than just the same thing over and over again. There is a lot of work that needs to be done, but getting all the pieces seamlessly working together is their goal. It's not going to be instant. You're not going to see a sudden massive increase in change. It's going to be evolutionary, like little bits here and there as the new patches come out, but we'll see them grow, and this goes for everything. He says they're now able to more rapidly iterate. There's no need for big systems to be created, holding everything else up like we've seen this last year. Patches from now on will be pretty much the same stuff, but it'll just get better and better as time goes on and they fine-tune other areas. This does go for everything like cargo, bounty hunting, player interactions. This 3.0 is just the starting point. Now they're adding to it as time goes on. So next question is to do with bounty hunting. There's a few questions about bounty hunting, which was from the Noobifier, so thank you to him for asking these questions. How will it be handled if players log off if you're chasing a bounty down? And Tony says that if you log off, your character and his items, the ship, will remain afterwards for some time. So if you're chasing someone and they log off, themselves and their ship will persist and you will be able to get them, to kill them or capture them. If you are out of sight and out of the proximity of who is hunting you and you log off, then you will disappear and you will be able to get away with it. They don't want to keep your character in-game forever, but they don't want you to use it as an exploit. So there'll be some balancing when this comes in, I'm sure. But bounties will leave clues behind if you are trying to track them. So for the example he gave is like if your bounty goes through Area 18, you may capture him on a security camera and then the bounty hunters will be notified that your bounty has been spotted, so then you will be able to track them. Basically, they want the law and order to push back against people committing crimes like we see in the real world. So if you are planning to play as a pirate, you'll have to be clever, you'll have to be careful unless you're in non-UEE space. The same goes for repairing and replenishing your ship. It'll be more expensive for a pirate as there are less places to choose to do so the demand is too high. This is obviously good for those like myself who don't want to start fights and attack people and whatnot, keeping us safe, but it will be quite challenging for pirates who need to be smart about how they pull off jobs. It's got to be a challenge, but it shouldn't be game-breaking for them to be able to be a pirate. Anyway, second to last question, will we ever be able to pay off our bounties? And Tony said they've talked about it, like in the real world. This is not final, of course, but you can pay off lesser transgressions, but the bigger ones you'll need to deal with. So if you've killed someone, you'll have to deal with that by going to prison or being killed. Theft, something small, you will be able to just pay a fine and it'll be gone. Also, when it comes to being chased, don't expect large ships showing up for small crimes. It'll just be singular UEE advocacy people, for the smaller bits trying to arrest you. Last question. Describe the complexity to the reputation system and how will relationships be calculated? For example, will all members of the org be tainted with the same brush? Now he says that orgs will have their own reputation, which will be a byproduct of the individual members of the organisation. Org leaders and org owners will be able to set a particular limit to behaviour to auto-kick members if they go too far. So, for example, if you have a zero tolerance of crime in your org, then any member of your org that commits a crime will then be auto-rejected or kicked. I'm sure there's not going to be black and white like that. There will be a grey area where if they are hidden affiliates or whatever, it's not going to be too bad. But until we get more in terms of org management into our hands, they haven't said any more. Anyway, that was the interview with Tony Z. Thank you to Andy Green from MyRadar for getting these interviews. Some really good information there, especially about bounty hunting. We haven't heard much on that. And a lot about subsumption and the economy. Always great stuff to hear. Don't forget about the Banu Merchantman giveaway. Top link in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to follow me here on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter and Instagram. And I shall see you next time.